Ready for? Are we ready for Unreal Engine tutorial?
It's like blocking me. I can't see.
I said, are you ready, kids? Okay, everybody who has Unreal installed, please launch it. I'm gonna put my Discord in Do Not Disturb. Oh. Okay. Yeah. Everybody launch Unreal Engine. You should see something like this. Do you? I can't see what you guys see, so.
I see that my download is.
I have texted Joyce.
We're gonna make a new project. I'm gonna say let's do a third-person project because we can see our character and it's funny. And I'm gonna name it Unreal Tutorial. Is everybody good? We're making a new project. Are we following along? I recommend it. I'm not going to do that. Also, I didn't tell you guys to install that, so you might not have it if you just installed the engine.
But starter content is basically like a bunch of free assets that are included in the project if you select it. So like the materials, textures, models.
It can be quite large, especially if you're not actually going to use them. And if I remember, a lot of them were very useful to me. There's like a chair that was like pretty cool.
Door.
Yeah, not super useful. Let's create a project. Did it have a fire? Useful, but try your own. Okay, when it loads, you will be in the Unreal Engine editor. Is everybody there? Or downloading the engine still? Installing. Okay. It might take a minute if you have not opened 5.1.1. Do you want to do the Git explanation when we have it open, or?
Yeah, sure. Hello. I will introduce source control first because it is important that we should all be using it.
If you're not using it, like just assume your project is going to fail and burn and you're going to lose it all.
Yeah.
I literally do not do a project that takes more than a week without some version of source control because it's just not worth it.
Yeah. Does everyone know what source control is?
No, what is source control?
Source control is basically a way to keep track of your files and revert files if you make mistakes, and you could share them with other people. And yeah, it's pretty effective means of not losing your project progress. So we'll be showing how to use GitHub because we use GitHub for GCS. So you click the source control button here, which is in the bottom, and you press connect to source control. There's a provider, a button here. You would say Git, and then it's like, okay. So what we're doing here is we're initializing the project to use GitHub Git as the source control thing. So what that's going to do is it's going to add a git ignore file. It's going to basically add a folder that says .git in there, and GitHub is going to use this to basically add this as a repo later on.
Yeah, if you already had a repository set up and you're using a project, for example, that your project lead set up, you won't have like these options. You can just connect to source control and it'll work.
Yeah, you just say accept settings. Yeah, it'll just work. So yeah, because basically what will happen if your project already has source control is you'll see a window that looks like this instead. Then you just click accept settings. So then what we do is we try and figure out where our project is by right-clicking any arbitrary folder and say show in Explorer. Yeah, but I didn't know that.
Oh, well, there you go. In document.
So here's our project. We're just gonna copy this. And then we're gonna open up GitHub. You're gonna do add local repository. You're gonna paste.
Oh,
Oh,
no,
you
it's
say,
bad. Yeah,
Novo ThinkPad.
you won't have this problem. Don't worry about it. Copy and paste it.
And then you just copy paste. And then you add repo. And then there's a bunch of stuff. That's okay.
Which is our initial commit, basically.
Yeah, so then you just type in init commit, as that's your first commit. And description is optional. Then you just say commit to master. And then it takes a little bit to think.
There's a lot.
Yeah. And then you could publish the repo, and then basically you're like, this is an Unreal tutorial. Then you'd say description. Then you could choose to keep it private or public. If it's private, if you send a link to someone, it'll show up as a 404 error. If you send a link to someone and it's public, they'll be able to see your repo just fine. If you're added to any organizations like Huntington Robotics, you can include that.
Yeah.
You can basically put this project under that organization. And then you would publish this repo, and then it would go appear on your GitHub account. I'm not going to do that because I'm not going to pollute your thing, but that's how it works.
Yeah, so when you join your project or whatever for GCS, it'll already be set up and you'll just see a remote option that you can pull from.
Yeah, so pulling is basically you're downloading everything that is up in the cloud, all these new changes, and then pushing is basically you have new changes and you're pushing them to the cloud. There's also these things called branches, which are really nice because if we all work on the same branch and we happen to be working on the same files, you'll get merge conflicts. And merge conflicts are bad because that means work gets thrown out. So
Have to be redone.
exactly. So branches are useful because you can work on either the same files.
Which is not recommended for Unreal, by the way.
Yes. But like say in Unity, you could, and you'd be able to like more easily merge things together without like wondering how to do it. Because it'll be like, would you like to merge your branch with master instead of would you like to merge master into master? And you're like, what? Which is the correct one? So then so branches also are nice because you can work in isolation. So say there's a branch called like you can press new branch. I could be like mat dev. And then I could be like, I could do some stuff here. And then while in mat dev, there could be a different branch, like say main here, master. Like they could be doing something else entirely and they could be pushing a bunch of changes, but these changes won't affect me because they will stay on their own branch. And that's basically it. And then when I'm done, I can merge back into main, or I can choose to merge master into my branch, and then I could choose, so then I can switch later into master. I can then merge mat dev into mine. I can't do that right now because the branches are at the same amount of pushes, so there's no point. But when you'll be doing things, you can do that.
Yeah, and when we get into actually making files, we'll show you why in Unreal we really don't want you to work on the same file on different branches at the same time, at least. Why it's different from other engines where you actually write text files, because Unreal does not. Jason, do you have the engine? Okay, we will proceed, I think, and you'll catch up. Everyone else is in the editor, right? Okay, we're gonna make something really cool that I think you should never ever make in your project or have anything like this at all. We're gonna make a box fountain. It's a
How do you
special.
I saw that you like moved around.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
So in Unreal Engine, you can move the camera by holding right click, moving the mouse. You see, it's pretty cool. While holding right click, you can also use WASD to move the camera around like a video game. It's pretty cool. And also E to go up and Q to go down. It's very useful. It's pretty easy to move around in this engine, unlike some other tools I've used before. If you've ever modded Call of Duty, my heart is with you because Radiant sucks. Anyway, that's how you move around. Let's make a box fountain. How did you make a box fountain? You just made a new blueprint. Okay. If you hit Control Space or you hit this content drawer button in the bottom, you can kind of see your project folders, right? We're just going to make a new, I don't like the default Unreal thing. Let's just in content, make a new folder, and I'm going to call it blueprints. Your project will probably have a better file structure than, and I think you're probably getting injured at me doing this because there's already a blueprints folder in third person. I don't know why Unreal Engine has a strange default system set up. Let's open this blueprints folder. We're gonna right click and make a new blueprint class. And it's gonna be an actor.
All the other blueprint classes besides actor have different functionality. So a pawn is similar to a character blueprint. Basically, a pawn is something you could possess, aka control. Characters can also be controlled, but they have more functionality. Like they can like walk around and jump and stuff, and they have logic built in for that. But a pawn just is going to be basically like a severed head that flies around.
Yes, you could possess it.
Yeah.
Or it can be possessed by AI. Yes, it's I usually, if I'm making a character, I usually just do pawn, but we're not going to focus on this right now. With our new blueprint that we just made, it's going to prompt us, I guess, to put a name. I'm going to name it BP_box fountain. Why do I title it, prefix it with BP? Because it's a blueprint file. We like to be consistent with our naming conventions because it makes it obvious what types of files are what and what they do. Double click this to open it, and we'll see why it's called a blueprint file. It might open like this, where it's like another window. It's just like Chrome, where if you click the tab and drag, you can add it to like this top bar. I like to have them all on one line because it's just easiest to see what's open. You can switch tabs really easily. Is everybody in their new blueprint? So in your new blueprint, if we go to this event graph, we're going to see the cool stuff. We're going to see what blueprints are in Unreal. So Unreal Engine does not use a traditional scripting language with text. It instead uses a blueprint system, which is, I don't remember who it was. I think my friend Jack described it as Scratch, but like on crack. That's because it's like node-based, was it block coding, where you just are dragging wires into things and functions are getting called. You're not actually writing a lot of text. You might think that makes this a little bit simpler and less capable than something like C# or C++. And that's not exactly true. This is actually a really powerful scripting tool because Epic has put a lot of functionality into these nodes that we can use. Did you want to say something?
No, you nailed it.
I thought you were saying something. Okay. We're going to be using something called events now. And events are a lot like functions or methods in a traditional scripting language or programming language, in that you can call them and they have inputs and they make things happen. I'll explain what the difference is in a little bit. But for now, we're going to focus on this one, event tick. It's the bottom one, it should be. If Alex were here, he would probably be passionate about telling you not to use this one in your actual projects. And I'm going to agree with him. There's really not a lot of functionality you need to get out of event tick, but there is a lot of potential for wasting processing power and time and making code look ugly.
Why?
Why? Because it's called every frame, this event.
So if you have 120 frames, whatever happens on this event here will get called 120 times.
So normally you would have some kind of check with this event. So like when it's called, is this condition met? If not, don't do anything. But that's still 120 checks per second on top of whatever the engine is doing in the background to even call this event. So it's just not worth it. There are better ways of doing it. But for now, let's do it the bad way because it's fun. We're going to see this arrow, this exec arrow. If you click and drag it, a window will pop up and you can put a new node down. We're going to type in spawn actor, I think. Yeah, spawn actor from class. And it should highlight this one for you. If you click on it, it'll give you this node that you can move around. Right click and drag to move around, by the way, in here. You can also click and drag to like select stuff.
Middle mouse button, I think, is pan.
Uh,
Or
I thought it was pan because that's like how every 3D software works.
Yeah.
it works sometimes.
I think Godot 2D also uses middle mouse to pan.
I think it worked once for me.
Interesting. I'm going to be using right click to pan.
Yes.
It works fine like this. Anyway, yeah. I don't know. This engine is funny sometimes, but it's really good, I promise. Okay, in this spawn actor node, which we can move up to line up a little bit nicer with left click and drag, we're gonna select the class. I think we can just do, is it a mesh? What is it? Static mesh actor?
Static mesh.
Yeah, if you type mesh into this this purple box, we can get a static mesh actor. So this this node spawns. I'm saying nodes. I think it's okay. This node spawns actors from a certain class. And a class is just like, you see in the content drawer, we made this like blueprint box fountain. This is a class. It's a type, I guess. Yeah. So this will spawn an actor. It's a static mesh actor. It's static mesh actor. We're gonna put the transform to the transform. Do we know what a transform is? If you don't know what a transform is, it's like a big matrix that contains information about where an object is, what its rotation is, what its scale is. Give me graphics flashbacks to an assignment that I have to finish. We're gonna get the transform from this actor. So if we just type get transform, type it and spell the words correctly. Get actor transform, and we click. We right click to bring this window up. We get this this function get actor transform. We didn't even have to write this. It was just built into the engine. Isn't that so cool? And if you look at the return value and the thing we're trying to put it in, they're the same color. That's because they're the same type. That's very convenient because we just click and drag, and boom, it's using the transform from the self actor, which is our box fountain. Do I have to put the mesh to like a cube?
Yeah,
Oh,
I thought you would do that.
no,
I could show
I've never
you.
used. Yeah, go for it.
I can keep talking. Okay, so before we do that, do you guys see where it says collision handling override? Do you guys? So it says always spawn, ignore collisions. There is try to adjust location but always spawn. There's try to adjust location and don't spawn if still colliding, and do not spawn. So what this is saying is that if you have something that spawns in, and if it is spawning in something else, what should it do? So as we were making a box fountain, we wanted to always spawn, no matter the collisions. And now if we compile, it'll be like, yay, compiled. But if we don't have these transforms here, I'm gonna break this node by doing alt click. It'll be like, what the fuck? There's an error because of this transform. It needs a transform. So that's why we get the actor transform, because it doesn't default to like the world origin, which is 0, 0, 0. So yeah, so basically this node will spawn in this mesh, static mesh actor. And if we want to give it a mesh, we're going to drag out of here. And we're probably going to do get static mesh component. This is basically accessing a variable, which is sort of data inside this class, which contains information. So this is getting you information about the static mesh component that is in the static mesh actor.
I didn't know if there was a way to do a pre-construct. That's why I was asking.
No, you can't. Yeah. So then you can do, I think you could do get mesh. Yeah, so then you could do get static mesh, but
Oh, that's fine.
get mesh, set static mesh, right? So you get this node here. All this node is going to do is basically set the static mesh. So we're going to go in and put a cube down. That is it.
Let's zoom out a little bit so it shows like the whole event we just wrote.
Yep. So this is what we just wrote.
So this is very readable. I think this code would also be readable if it were written in like C++ or C# because it's very small and simple. But I also think that blueprints can make things very readable if you write them well, at least. You can write them badly, I promise. It's very easy to follow what's happening here. We're spawning a static mesh actor wherever this actor is, because it's self. And then it's just assigning a cube to its mesh variable. It's very straightforward, I think. not too hard to follow if it's just like a simple blueprint. So let's see what it does. I'm gonna save this too. Yeah, well, we're gonna see. In our content, or back in our level, let's go to our map, right? Open the content drawer, and we're just gonna click and drag our box fountain into the hole.
Looks like nothing because there is nothing in it. It's just an empty blueprint that spawns in actors.
Yes. I'm gonna move it up a little bit just because I want to see the cubes in the air. Yeah, so you can just use these arrows to move it. Nothing crazy.
Quick question, on the last section with the event graph, where did you pull up like the target, the last two things?
So see this blue node here? You drag out from the blue node and you type in, if you type in set static mesh and press enter, you'll get that.
Oh, okay.
And then you would type in the mesh that you want to put in. So like it could be a cube or literally anyone.
This is a box fountain, so we're using boxes.
Yes.
Okay. If I hit play, it's going to put me into a third-person character, but that's okay.
So yeah.
So let's see what happens if we run this, which we can do with this green arrow. Nothing happens. I didn't anything.
It's the mobility of the box is static. So it can't move.
You can read errors to see what happens. But mobility is static. That's crazy. Yes. He already ran it. So let's use, I mean, can we do it after this or do we want to? You've done this before. Explain.
So let's try setting the mobility to be set mobility.
And then not static.
That's not static, but to be movable.
Yeah.
Then instead of possessing the instead of pressing play, let's go in and press simulate.
That way we don't go into characters.
Oh, great. We have a box and it spawns. But do you see this number over here going up a lot? Let's scroll down. You guys know what the issue is? They're not moving, right? Dom is right. All hail Dom. So in order to make the move, we should turn on physics, because at least, you know, maybe it'll drop down when they spawned in.
This is where my computer breaks.
So what we do is,
I think it's on the actor, yeah.
yeah, we set physics. Set simulate physics.
It is on the component.
Yeah. And then we were like, yeah, let's simulate the physics.
What do you guys think is going to happen?
Then if we simulate physics, it goes,
It's beautiful. Actually, really. I'm surprised it's still running decently, to be honest. If you're on your laptop, it might not be working that well.
I put up your
54 FPS, 50 FPS. It's going down. It is.
If you want to see the frame rate, you press the tilde key, which is below the escape key, and type in stat space FPS, and they'll show the frame rate.
Very useful for testing your games that should not have stuff like this.
This is just fine for what this simulates.
If you want to simulate, you press these dots here, and then you press simulate.
Yeah, so you might be wondering what is the difference between play
like
and
you're mixing
simulate? And the answer is that pretty much play possesses whatever character you have, and simulate doesn't. Simulate keeps your editor controlled, so I can still click and drag around. I can also like select objects and move them even. Unreal is very good for debugging in this way, unless you're in VR, in which case it's harder. If I just hit play instead of simulate, I would be in my third-person character and I'd be drowning in what looks like foam from those bounce spaces. Uber into like a trampoline. Yeah, now my FPS is going red because there's a lot of cubes. Maybe you guys can see why using event tick is not a great idea for an actual game. It's because it can lag. This is a pretty extreme example, but still, you probably don't want it being called, especially on multiple things, a lot.
What would you normally use instead of the event tick?
Good question. What would we normally use instead of event tick? Why don't I show you? Instead of using event tick, there's a convenient node, I guess, that'll allow us to loop different events or functions on certain time intervals. And it's called set timer by event. So why don't we drag off from event begin play and put this node set timer by event. We're going to turn looping on because if the idea is spawning boxes a lot, we wanted to repeatedly do it, right? And we're going to put the time to how often do we want to spawn boxes? Any suggestions? Every 0.2 seconds. So I'm typing 0.2. I'm going to select both of these and move it over a little bit just by clicking and dragging and then clicking and dragging. And down here, we handle our box spawning stuff. We're going to remove the event tick node, so you can just click it and then hit backspace or delete, I think also works. And we're going to make a new event. So if you type custom event or even event, it should prompt you to add custom event. We're going to do that, and we're going to name it, I guess, spawn box. The name doesn't really matter. We're going to connect that to our first node instead. And now up here, where we had our set timer by event, we have this event input. We're going to connect that down to our new event. So when we begin play, this event is called when the actor enters the scene the first time. It's going to start this timer that is looping 0.2 seconds. And every time it finishes, it'll run this event. So let's see what happens when we do that. It's still spawning queues, but it's a little slower. It's only every 0.2 seconds instead of every like 1/60. Actually, 120 frames. Another thing to note about using this set timer method instead of using event tick is the timing is consistent, because event tick is just every tick or every frame, and your frame rate can fluctuate a little bit, especially during play. But this is like kind of lined up to a timeline, so it's not going to fluctuate. It's a little bit safer. I like to do this even if it's something where it's like supposed to run often. I usually want to do set timer or something like that. It's just like a safer method. Now this code here is like maybe a little bit much to look at, in my opinion. I don't really want to pollute my main event graph. And what it's doing is very consistent and like concise. Spawning a box, setting its mobility, setting its mesh, and then turning physics on. I'm going to put this into a function because I don't want it to pollute my event graph. Event graphs can get pretty ugly. Actually, if I open the third person character one, just for an example, this is a pretty nicely put together event graph, but it's still a lot. Like you can imagine how having a lot of different functionality can kind of look bad. I need to move the zoom. So let's make a new function. I'm gonna call it a spawn box. Oh, that's already the name of the event. Don't call it that. Spawn box actor. If we go back to our event graph, which we can use with the tab, I'm just going to copy this whole thing, except for the first node, and I can control click to kind of toggle it while keeping the other ones. I'm just going to copy them with Control C and paste them with Control V into this function, and then connect it. So now instead of having, actually I could have used Control X because I'm going to delete this, but regardless, get rid of that. And now you have in your function spawn box actor, the original code, and then in the event graph, we're just going to call this function. So if you type in spawn box actor, your function will pop up. This input target self, you're going to get that on any function you call in your blueprint. That's because we could potentially call this on another box fountain actor. If we had two in a scene, for example, and we were calling this from like a third blueprint, we would have to reference one of them and input that into this target variable. Since we're calling it in this blueprint, we're just using self. So if I compile that, always remember to compile and then simulate, it's still working. Look at that. You might have noticed that we are calling an event, a custom event, whose only purpose is to call another function. Wouldn't it be nice if we could just call the function directly? Well, you actually can. Instead of doing set timer by event, we can also use set timer by function. So set timer by function name is the node. And if we disconnect this wire by holding Alt and clicking, now when we begin play, instead of calling this event, we can just set timer by function name, and the name is going to be spawn box actor. Time I'm going to do the same as 0.2, and then looping on. And again, it's calling it to this, the object itself, because the function is on this, this blueprint actor. If we simulate now, it's still working, and it's a little bit simpler. I will warn you though, set timer by function name is slightly frowned upon, actual like use. And that the reason for that is the way that this node references our function is just with this name variable, which is just filled in manually. It's not actually using a reference to the function. So if I rename this function to like make box actor, this node is not updated with the new name. So now if we simulate, nothing's going to happen. This isn't really a problem. Like if you're really paying attention, you're careful about this, this shouldn't cause too many issues, but I would be aware that this is not an actual reference to the function, it's just the name. And that's why set timer by event is a little bit preferred, at least to me, even if it is a little bit like, not redundant, but you're kind of going around to go to an event just to call the function. This at least uses a direct reference to the function. As you can see, it updated the name to make box actor.
There's a way to make it cleaner so that you don't have like a wire going in from the event boxes.
Yes. You want to?
I can just create an event.
Here, let's get rid of the set timer by function name real quick and go back to where make the wire go into set timer by event. Yeah, so if you wire out here and do create event, you get this node. Object itself again, because it's an event in here. And we can just select our event here. So that way, if our event is like, I don't know, the way down here, which, you know, is up to the programmer to decide how it looks, but you can just call it kind of by reference instead of wiring it into it. It's a little nicer. Yeah. So that's kind of an introduction to blueprints. Anybody have any questions about anything you saw there? It was pretty simple, I think, so it shouldn't be too much. I will show you one thing. Let's show you how to stop this. Another advantage of not using event tick, it's a little bit easier to stop this this box fountain because right now it will go forever. And even though I made it a little slower with the timer, it's still going to lag my computer eventually. So let's get a way to turn it off. This return value from set timer by event is a reference to a timer handle, which is basically the timer that's running in the background. If we drag off and click promote to variable, it'll make a new variable in this blueprint called new var. If you come down to the bottom left where the variables are, you can rename it. So if you click on it and either click again or click F2, you can rename this. I'm going to call it just timer. Now we have a reference to our timer. So if we want to stop our box fountain from happening, we can say, I don't know, how should I do this? I'm going to, let's just do on begin play. So we'll set a timer. I'm going to do I don't recommend this, but make a delay. Don't do this in your code either. I'm doing this because I'm lazy. I'm gonna put 4 in it, just 4 seconds. If we grab this timer, so drag it out and click get timer, we get like a reference to it. It's a variable. We can drag off of that. And what is it? Clear. If you type clear, yeah, clear and invalidate timer by handle is the node that we get from that. So that will be self-explanatory. Stop the timer and delete it.
Does it spawn multiple boxes?
I'm gonna compile now. I think a delay node might break it. No, it didn't. Okay. So it spawns boxes for 4 seconds and then it stops.
Yeah, perfect. So what can now? Is a,
It's- because we got a reference to the timer, we can deal with it later. A note about delay nodes: don't use these first of all because fixed time intervals. They're good for stuff like you know, timer by event. But when it comes to delays, like this will stop anything else from happening in this this graph for a little bit. Not good. It's better to use timelines. Oh yeah, so functions versus events, right? I mentioned at the beginning that events are kind of like functions or methods from other programming languages. But there's already a thing called functions in here. What's up with that? Well, events are a little bit different from functions in a couple ways. But one of the major ways they're different is they are async compatible. Like you can put a delay in here and it won't freeze your entire game. Because events can kind of handle that stuff. In a function, you're not allowed to use any kind of delays, or you can't use any kind of timers or timelines in here. I think you can use, yeah, it won't even let you put a delay in here, I think. If you were to have like some kind of delay in this function, what would happen is your game would freeze for that amount of time, because functions are supposed to happen basically instantaneously. I mean, some of them can be like complicated, but they're supposed to be like an instant action. Whereas when it comes to events, you can have stuff like delays, don't use these actually. Timers, timelines, it's a little more free. I pretty much use events anywhere I have to like, I don't know, make an action happen from like another blueprint or something. And I really only use functions to clean up my code. Like this could be in the event graph, but it's just a little dirtier. You guys cool with that? Nothing too confusing. I hear discussion, so I'm. You guys good? Okay, I just don't know what's going on. Yeah, I was gonna do a brief intro to inputs. I think maybe just to show you what's there. This might be a little bit hard to follow along because it's a little bit of just like watch, and I can't really explain why it's like this. It just is. But we have time, so I think I'll do it. Let's do inputs, right? If we play instead of simulate, we can control our third-person character, right? You ever wonder how that works? You might need to do this if you're making a video game where a player can do stuff and you don't just watch boxes spawn. Let's give the player a new action. Any suggestions on what this action should be? I have a punch animation that I can put in. We can also make them like, I don't know, float or something. I'm just gonna do punch because I have it. So if you right click in here and you go to input, we're gonna be using two things, input action and input mapping context. Let's start with input action. We're gonna name it IA underscore hit or something. If we open this up, we see not that much information, but I will tell you that if you go to the triggers and you hit this plus sign, we're gonna add a new trigger of type pressed. So we made like an input action, and we know we can cause it by pressing, which is just, you know, it's pressing, as opposed to hold and release. Like you can tell the difference between these things. Go back in your content drawer, and we're going to make another thing in input called input mapping content. And I think it's just the IMC underscore, I don't know, there, I guess.
Why'd you get there again?
In the content drawer, right click input. Yeah. So when we have our mapping context, this is kind of like your settings menu for controls. What happened?
Right click. But
What version are you on?
Oh,
5.1. If you just do that is very strange.
yeah.
What about miscellaneous? You might be on 5.0.
That's fine.
oh, alright.
Just with it.
All right, well, it's a little bit different for you. If can you show her in the settings how to do it?
Yeah. So there's another way to do these. So,
All right, well, people still on 5.1.1, I can show you how to do this. If you open your mapping context, it's kind of like your settings menu where you can assign like different actions to different keybinds and button presses and stuff. We're just gonna make a new mapping here. Open this up. It's gonna be IA punch. It's our new input action. And we're gonna add a new keybind for it. I'm gonna make it just left click. So left mouse button. So we've assigned the left mouse button to our punch action. That doesn't do anything yet, but if we left click, it'll all punch basically. If you open up your third person character, to get here, content, third person blueprints.
then you should rename this.
Open your third person character. If you can't find it, you can also search for it in your content drawer.
And then
You get this like crazy looking blueprint. And up here, on begin play, it adds mapping context. If you're in 5.1.1, we're gonna wanna do that again, actually. We're gonna add another one. This does not really apply to you if you don't have this, sorry. See this like enhanced input local player subsystem. I'm just gonna extend that here. I'm gonna add our new mapping context, which is INC_player. So we've kind of added those input options into this player. Now that we've done that, we should have an event built in that we can call. So if you just come to a blank spot, right click and search for punch. You have this enhanced action event already ready. IA punch.
Um,
Are you using still input or are you just doing
input.
Okay, so this part should be pretty similar, just a little bit simpler event.
Right click.
For our 5.1 people, we're gonna click and drag out from triggered. And we're just gonna print something to the screen. So if you type print, you get print string. By default, it's hello. I'm gonna just type in like punched. Yeah, so it'll punch. And if we hit play now, so we're controlling our character, you'll notice in the top left, every time I click, it's punching. I mean, it's not actually punching because I didn't set up an animation, but like an input is happening, an event is being called. If we were to instead have in our input action, so go back to IA_punch, if you change the trigger to hold, and we set our hold time till it's on 1 second right now. Yeah. Then instead, when we hold down left click for 1 second, it'll start punching and it's repeatedly called until you stop. So we can kind of use our input action to change like how we want to start the action. The last thing I want to show is calling another actor or referencing another actor within a blueprint. So from this input action, or actually let's first make a new variable. I'm going to call it fountain. And the type of this variable is going to be a BP box fountain object reference. We all caught up. I did a bunch of things there.
it was BP box fountain.
Yeah, the variable was fountain and the type was BP box fountain. If you click and drag this into your event graph and click get fountain, we can call an event here remotely.
Using a different blueprint than you are.
I'm in the third person character. Where are you? This is just on this input action, like events.
It's on the box now.
Okay, I want to do it from the player character
Okay,
because
Go,
Yeah.
go here.
Yeah.
Up the level. See third person.
is everybody else who's following along at least in the third person character blueprints? Okay, so from this fountain variable, actually, did I make a function for this? Oh, tricked you. Okay, go back to box fountain. We're gonna make a new event really fast. And we're gonna call it stop. Okay. Sorry about that. I forgot we don't have one for this yet. Do we all have this event? I just made a new event in the box fountain blueprint called stop fountain. And I'm going to move the code that stops the fountain into the event that stops the fountain. That's crazy. This will not go on for much longer because it's 2 p.m. Should be like 2 minutes. Okay. If you're caught up, we have in our box fountain a new event called stop fountain, which clears the timer that we start. I'm going to remove the part that does this automatically from begin play because I don't want it to stop automatically. I want it to stop when I call this event. In our player, so go back to third person character, we have this variable fountain, which is of type BP box fountain. From that, if we click and drag, we can actually call that new event stop fountain. That's, we connect it to our punch action. So now if we punch, it'll print the string and it'll call stop fountain on fountain variable. But there's a problem. This fountain variable is not set to anything. It's null. If I start the game up and I punch, it'll print a punch, but it won't actually stop anything. And I'll get a bunch of errors because it's like a null pointer basically, but a little bit safer than that. So we need to assign a value to this variable. We can do this with script by using set, but to make it easy for myself, I'm gonna expose this variable to the editor by clicking this I button. You'll see that in the bottom left. Now if I compile and I go back in my map, actually, if I player start, it's not gonna make this easy because my actor's not actually in my scene. Okay, well, it looks like I have to do this through script then. Never mind, we don't have to expose it. That's really annoying. Okay, go to your level, like the first tab. And if you click this blueprint button right here, we can open the level blueprint. I don't like doing it this way, but we have a player start. We're not actually accessing our players, so I have to. Click open, and it'll open the level blueprint, which is like the blueprint for the level, I guess. This is a convenient blueprint because we can reference objects in the scene directly. It's annoying too because I'd have to get the player character. Yeah, I don't want to. Either way, it's going to make you guys do extra stuff. All right. Okay, if you saw that player start thing, delete it. We're going to put the player in there like this. So from your content drawer, if you find the third person character, just drag them in. Sorry, guys, I forgot. Yeah, so I'm going to have to do that probably on begin play. Yeah, so if you have this character in, and you go to its blueprint, on begin play, I'm going to drag this comment out a little bit and move the event over just to give myself some space. I believe if we right click and do get, is it get player character or controller and then you assign it to the character? Because that's, what is it?
You should go into the level itself.
I was trying to avoid that because it's just another thing we have to open.
No, you need to open it.
Can you just assign it on?
Okay, there's a lot of stuff here. So what you should do is search for POS and
Oh,
set auto possess player to be player 0. It's okay.
that
We
is
haven't
much
done this
easier,
for
yeah.
years. And then you type in input and you also press player 0. And then if you press play,
You possess it.
You
like we
possess
want.
it.
Okay. Did you guys see what he did? Because like you should do this if you're following along. If you've given up on following along, you can just watch. I know it's like annoying to go back and forth on things like this.
Type in POS, like possess. And see how it says auto possess player 0. And type in input.
Yeah, I don't do that a lot. So okay. We have a player we can possess and we can see it in the level. Thank God, finally. One more time, go back to the third person character blueprint. And if you unexpose this variable, re-expose it. We want the eye open so we can see it. When the variable is exposed, okay. Yeah, when we expose the variable, we can see it in the editor. So if I search for, what did I call it, fountain? It has this fountain variable on it. And right now it's set to none. And we want to assign this fountain to this variable. So I can just click on where the none is and it'll like prompt me. I'm gonna pick the box fountain. So that way when we are calling, when we call stop fountain on a variable, it actually has a reference. It's not none. So now if I hit play, boxes are spawning forever. When I left click, they stop. Look at that. Doesn't really make sense. It's not, I'm not really punching, but like the input action is doing something in another blueprint remotely. It's pretty cool. And it's not super hard to set up. Although I forgot I could auto possess player. It's pretty easy to do. Now, one more thing I want to show is if I click more than once, it's not going to break anything, but the editor will not like me. Oh, it actually didn't get mad at me, but still, I want to kind of sanitize this a little bit. If I go to my box fountain, the stop fountain function clears and invalidates a timer that might not actually be running. So if I click and drag off of this, I can do is valid timer handled. And if I click and drag off of this red and I type if or I type branch, this is your if statement, but for blueprints. And I'm going to make sure it's a valid timer before I clear it. I don't have to do this, but potentially this timer could not exist. And when I try to clear it, it'll get mad at me. So I don't want it to do that. Okay, I crashed Unreal, but if I didn't crash Unreal, it would work, I promise. I actually don't know why it crashed because I didn't really all I did was do a validity check on the timer. I didn't even run it, I just clicked compile. I'm just gonna say the editor's bad.
Is that the end of today's?
That is the end of today's session, for sure.
A very fitting way.
Yeah. This actually doesn't happen that much, but it happens sometimes. Yeah, so that's just a kind of introduction, exposure, I guess, to what blueprints are like. You can call events, you can use inputs, you can call events in other blueprints, you can use functions to clean up your code, spawn actors in a level, reference those actors. That's what a lot of the work is as a programmer. We didn't show you some other stuff like AI or animation blueprints, which are a little more in-depth and specialized, but some similar concepts carry over. So if you're ever in the Unreal Engine, you can be a little bit less intimidated, maybe not for your computer, but like you mentally can probably handle it better. So does anybody have any questions or things they just want to ask about Unreal Engine in general, even if they were not related to what I talked about?
Thank you, Andrew.
Go ahead.
Thank you.